The USS Savannah. For over 20 years, she carried fuel for the Navy's fleet. But today, she's headed to a scrapyard where a team of experts is waiting to break her down for recycling.
Push it as far and hard as you can. Let's run her up on the bank.
It's a monster maritime mission. A 13,000-ton hull, 3 sets of massive fueling posts, and 2 23,000-kilo propellers. But decades of service have made this ship a mess.
It's a beautiful bucket of toxic waste.
So, before they cut her up, they'll need to clean her out. It's all hands on deck, and the job starts now. ESCO Marine, a sprawling 40-hectare scrapyard and recycling operation at the southernmost tip of Texas. Dozens of decommissioned U.S. naval ships are cut up here year-round. And the USS Savannah is their newest arrival. She's just finished a 2-week tug trip from Virginia, around the tip of Florida, and into the Gulf of Mexico. The ESCO Marine crew boards the ship and quickly pushes her into their canal. There's not a minute to waste. In this business, time is money. But after 10 years in storage, there's no telling what condition she'll be in. And no one knows that better than ESCO's president, Richard Jarris. From his office, he surveys the inventory with shipboard manager Ron Mills.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, she looks really good. Actually, there's a lot of good metal on there. She looks like she's in pretty good condition, considering she's probably been in storage for 8 or 10 years, maybe.
You think you can get her done in 2 weeks?
2 weeks, that'll be a challenge.
She's worth her weight in recyclable materials like steel and copper. But to mine this mega ship for metal, they must systematically dismantle her. Breaking down 13,000 tons of marine material is no easy task. Not only is the ship huge, it's loaded with contaminants.
Ron, let's take a look at the drawings.
That's an important fact for Richard. Over 10 years ago, his former company was cited for serious environmental infractions. Now, ESCO's success depends on adhering to strict government guidelines. So, before they cut the Savannah down, they'll have to clean her up. The breakdown will happen in 4 steps. Step 1, the cleanup. Quarantine the ship and remove all hazardous materials. Step 2, the gut out. Comb the cavernous interior for resellable items. Step 3, the strip down. Clear the decks so the crew can reach the hull, including the removal of 3 sets of massive fueling posts. And step 4, the final breakdown. Working from top to bottom, cut away the Savannah until they can reach and remove the rudders and propellers. Then, slice up the final pieces, cutting up every centimeter of metal along the way.
Well, I'm ready to get going on it. I'm looking really excited about it. I want to get out there and walk through that and find all the goodies.
Richard may be president, but there's another man who's boss. Safety manager C.J. Meyer, a.k.a. the Enforcer.
This isn't my first rodeo.
He's been doing this job for 15 years and broken down dozens of ships.
Okay, let's try to get all our exits and entries and arrows. I want everybody to be able to find their way in and find their way out.
Until CJ and his team say so, no one sets foot on board.
A lot of cable, lots of cable.
Below deck, he starts his inspections with second in command, Rafael Barrera. Together, they must survey every meter of the ship.
Okay, Rafa, let's see what we got here. You can get so lost down here, it'll scare you. You can turn around a corner, and if you do not have a light, or if your light goes out, you're lost, and you're feeling your way out. you always go accompanied by another person, never alone. That's one of the main #1 rules at this rodeo right here.
But getting lost is the least of CJ's worries. After decades of neglect, the Savannah's full of hazards.
Let's go outside and take a look out here in the bow. It's the kind of stuff we don't want right there. It'll hurt somebody. I do have a concern about that mast forward there. It's just tied up. We're gonna have to make sure that thing's laid over so it doesn't fall on anyone.
The Savannah may be in disrepair now, but she wasn't always in this condition. Built in 1970, the Savannah served in the Vietnam and Persian Gulf Wars. Longer than 2 football fields and 10 stories high, she was perfectly designed for her job. For over 20 years, she hauled fuel for the U.S. Navy. Her huge hull could carry 26 million liters of fuel far and wide. So the Navy's fleet could stay at sea longer. A tactical advantage at war or at peace. But CJ knows that all that power and capacity comes at an ecological price. The Savannah's covered in deadly contaminants, and it's his job to find them.
It's an array of sampling that goes on this vessel before we're even allowed to give the okay to start dismantling.
He doesn't have to search long.
This equipment contains PCBs.
There's toxins in the walls.
All this fiberboard here, you take this paint off, there could be asbestos behind that. All of this has to come off until there's nothing but steel walls.
And contaminants in the lighting.
I don't want anybody breaking light bulbs. These fluorescent light bulbs that we see up here, they have mercury vapor in them.
In this job, CJ's learned to expect the unexpected.
You never know what you're gonna find on these ships. I have found stuffed dummies sitting in a chair with a book and a hard hat like this. And you walk in total darkness and you turn and there they are, you know, and you're not expecting anyone down there. It's kind of freaky, you know, it scares you.
But there's one thing that's no surprise. The Savannah is a mess.
It's a beautiful bucket of toxic waste, but once you remove all the waste, you have nothing but a recyclable commodity, which is steel, copper, brass, nickel. Any kind of metal that's on this ship will be recycled. This ship will be 100% recycled.
There's one area that's at the top of CJ's toxic list.
Okay.
The engine room.
Let's see if we can get down here. Let me check this ladder well real quick.
20 years ago, this room was bustling with sailors. But today, there's only memories and a lot of asbestos.
All this white stuff you see here is probably asbestos.
Asbestos is a microscopic mineral fiber that's extremely strong and heat resistant. Attributes that made it a perfect insulator.
It would keep things that are supposed to be hot.
And the reason why it's all over the engine room.
I reckon there's going to be about 400 to 500 cubic yards of asbestos that gets pulled out of this engine room.
That's almost 400 cubic meters. That quantity of asbestos and the scale of the room makes it a huge challenge. Plus, there are things the crew could fall over and into everywhere.
Watch your step. There's open grading right here. Okay?
Not to mention hard-to-reach areas.
Now, you see up here how high that ceiling is? See that? The very top, that's all canvas buttoned with insulation behind it that has to be removed.
But this toxic task will be tackled another day. The asbestos crew's working from the top of the ship down, so they must start just above the engine room first. It's a dangerous job. Inhaling asbestos fibers scars the lungs and leads to severe illnesses, even death. In the U.S. alone, it's the cause of an estimated 10,000 fatalities every year. So the crew must seal off the area and wear protective clothing and breathing gear. It's a requirement that crew supervisor Jose Ramirez enforces with an iron hand.
If they don't take it serious to the letter of the law, they're out of here. They have one chance.
The team secures the room and gets to work. They keep the dust down with a steady spray of water. From drywall to insulating foam, they strip out all the asbestos-infused materials. Next, they bag and tag what they remove and place it in a quarantine container for shipment to a contained landfill. Finally, after 1 month, the cleanup's over. The teams removed hundreds of thousands of kilograms of contaminants. It's safe for them to move to step 2, the gut out. In charge, Gene Anderson.
We don't put it in the doorway because it's a fire hazard.
We're other treasure hunters. Anything we find on the ship that's good and resellable, we'll take it out and resell it.
The kitchen's the first gold mine.
You would be surprised what you find. Kitchen equipment, furniture, something that we know that regular people would, like to buy, put in their house or buy for the hell of it.
The crew brings every item they salvage to ESCO's warehouse. Brian Fleischman runs the store, and he sells items that would surprise even a sailor.
Some of the stuff's brand new, some of it's slightly used. These are the $400 U.S. government toilet seats. Anything that can be reused, that's what we try and sell. Few life rings from the various ships. There's our bells. Lifeboat radios over here. Yep, that's for sending out Morse code. That's the antenna. Here's your earphones. Tank sounding boards. We got hand dryers. There's Army helmets. That's a big spotlight. Dummy shells. This is barber chairs. That's when you could still smoke when you're getting a haircut. We got all kind of stuff. That's actually a snatch block. Anchor shackle. And these are more of the metal blocks. Pretty big, quite big, to real big. It looks like a mishmash of stuff, but people walk through here, and it's just unbelievable what they find.
Back on the Savannah, CJ's 1 month into the gut out and happy with the progress.
Full speed ahead!
He clears the crew to move on and the mega cranes to roll in. It's time for the next stage, the strip down. The shipbreakers are ready to clear the Savannah's decks, including 3 sets of 15-meter fueling posts. The Savannah's massive posts were key to her success at sea. She had to be able to refuel several ships at the same time, and receiving vessels could be nearly double her size. So her fueling posts needed to be tall enough and plentiful enough to extend oil lines to reach her fleet. But her feats at sea didn't stop there. The Savannah could also transfer ammunition to warships via helicopters. But landing a copter on a ship in rough seas is dangerous, not to mention hard on its landing gear. So pilots would hover above the Savannah's deck while the ship's crew hooked up the cargo below. Minutes later, the receiving vessel could be gassed up and ready to fight. Today, it's all hands on deck for a different reason. The fueling posts must be cut and lifted out. But after years of neglect, there's no telling how sturdy they are or how easily they could collapse. That's a fact that makes shipboard manager Ron Mills extremely nervous.
This is the most risky thing we'll do on this ship, there's no doubt about it. Sometimes we pick them straight, sometimes we topple them. We try to topple them as often as possible because of the risk involved. It's definitely a risk, highly risky job.
But he's got the right man for the maneuver, crane operator Little Joe.
Do you think you can make a clean straight lift on that? Or is it going to need to be toppled?
No, it'll be a clean
lift, right?
A clean lift.
Okay.
Their plan, remove one single mast to make room for the fueling posts to fall.
But you are going to be able to lift that straight, right?
Yes, it'll be a challenge. It'll be a challenge, but yes.
Lifting out a 15-meter rusty mast is already difficult, but there's one detail that makes the job even harder. The crew doesn't know exactly how heavy any of the ship's parts are. And Little Joe's crane maxes out at 55,000 kilos.
How much do you think is going to weigh it?
I said about around 78,000 pounds.
All right.
A miscalculation of the mast's weight could cause his crane to collapse. But there's only one way to find out. Cable it up and lift it. A worker climbs the mast and secures it at the top. Then the burner crew begins to torch its base. After a few more cuts, it's all up to Little Joe. He gives the mast a tug. 35,000 kilos, a load his crane can easily handle. But the calculations don't stop there. The weight of the mast, the height of his boom, and the changing wind speeds must all be taken into consideration.
To pick the one piece and a clean lift, as soon as it comes loose, the crane operator has to compensate for the fact it's heavy and the fact that in the wind it's going to want to come toward his crane.
So, Little Joe always gets final say on what's lifted and when. He gives Ron the thumbs up, and Ron secures the deck.
Sí, por favor, no quiero securo la escalera. Because this is so close to the place where people come on board the ship, I'm trying to get somebody to go down and secure the staircase so that there's no chance somebody just walks right up in the middle of this thing while in the process of dropping it. So take it to the edge. There you go, take a look, move it to the edge of the ship.
The decades-old mast may contain contaminants like lead. Inadvertently dropping it in the water could spell ecological disaster. So Ron watches every move Little Joe makes.
All right, over the side, buddy. So far, so good.
One down, 6 more to go. But the remaining posts aren't singles, they're doubles.
I would say that this is probably the most difficult one we'll have. The other ones, you're dropping one stick at a time or picking up one mast or stick at a time. In this case, you're dropping 2 masts simultaneously that are tied together. So hopefully the fact that they're tied together will work in your favor, and they'll both stay attached as they fall over. This cable that runs down the center will be attached to the crane. The crane will pull a tension on it. They'll cut the two towers at the same time, and it should fall like two trees falling simultaneously in the woods.
It's a piece so big that ESCO's president, Richard Jarris, arrives to watch it go down.
Yes. Ron, we just about ready to go?
Yeah, we're ready. We're going to take a strain on the cable in just a second.
We got the area secured.
Do you have a clear path or work?
Oh yeah, no problem.
The crew rigs up the 15-meter fueling posts and cuts the bases.
It's like a lumberjack cutting a tree. The guy's already done over there, so. Here it goes.
$91,000 kilos of fueling post safely hit the deck.
All right, guys, good job. That was perfect. Dead center, perfect fall.
Good job, Ron.
So far, so good. Everything's looking good.
Nice, Phil. Good. Good job. What you do? You work?
You know I work every day.
The crew continues stripping down the deck until there's nothing left but the Savannah's hull. Two weeks later, it's time for her final breakdown. It's been 3 months since ESCO's shipbreaking crew began work on the USS Savannah. Now, the heavy lifting really begins. Working from top to bottom, the team must slice away at the ship so they can reach and remove her massive rudders. Next, they'll move the Savannah stern first into a slip so they can take off her 23,000 kilogram propellers. Then last but not least, they'll pull her ashore and cut her up until she's gone. Shipboard manager Ron Mills gets ready to rumble. The team must slice through the ship's 2-centimeter thick hull.
All right, that's good. It's looking good, guys.
And there's only one way to do it. By hand, with blowtorches. The flame is 50% acetylene gas and 50% oxygen. The only mixture that burns hot enough to cut steel. Over 3,000 degrees Celsius. The burners attack the ship. Cutting each section for liftoff is a 2-step process. First, they cut the ship's skin, but leave her underlying connective ribs in place. The uncut ribs act like tabs to keep the piece in place until the team's ready to remove it. Then, when they're ready for removal, they cut the tabs and lift the section free. The burners can't cut a piece that's heavier than their crane can lift, so it's a job that takes years of experience.
Every Monday to Friday, starting from 2:20 p.m., we're bringing you the best of Nat Geo.
Got him on!
Goes bang.
This is a huge snake.
I'm about to go into the Maya underworld.
Entertain your brain while you're at home with Best of Nat Geo. Monday to Friday, starting from 2:20 p.m. on National Geographic.
Here we go.
Classic.
Oh, good stuff. Incredible. Absolutely stunning.
Electrifying the crowd.
Oh, she read it. And that's it. What a treat.
This has been Grand Slam Classics. Every night, 10 p.m. on Fox Sports 2.
This June on National Geographic Network. Gordon Ramsay is back to unearth world cultures through food and adventure.
Oh, my God.
Be amazed by the sophisticated tactics these apex predators developed to rule the ocean. Ex-Master Chef judge Gary Megan visits 12 families in India to uncover their culinary secrets. All new this June on National Geographic Network.
An English agent went missing.
I'm here to discover his fate.
One must have secrets, don't you agree?
We can help each other.
Soon, the peace will be broken.
Same day as the U.S. Bark Skins on National Geographic.
On land, an army of mechanical shears pulverizes the Savannah's remains. The Cat 385 is the first to feast. Its claw-like shear attachment crushes with a force of 350 kilos per square centimeter, making mincemeat out of the ship. Then, ESCO ships out the metal scrap for recycling. The current market price for steel, 26 cents a kilo. So every barge load that goes out brings in nearly $400,000. But other parts of the Savannah have an altogether different destination. This 2,500 horsepower hammer mill shredder. Like a mammoth metal octopus, it loads scrap to its hungry mouth, where a rotating drum lined with 15-centimeter spiked teeth pre-grinds the metal meal into bite-sized pieces. On today's menu, an appetizer of crushed cars. Then, the main course, aluminum shelving from the Savannah's kitchen. All the shredded materials are sorted and routed via another set of arms to recycling collection piles. To earn its keep, this hungry monster needs to process close to 300 tons of scrap a day. So, it's fed everything from ship parts to shopping carts. Only meters away, ESCO runs another recycling operation. Their quarry? Copper. It trades at several dollars a kilo, but selling it is easier than mining it. It's buried inside cabling from the ship, and it's Andy Jarris's job to extract it.
A lot of this cable, this real small cable in the past, you couldn't process it at all because it's too small to strip.
Size isn't the only challenge. The cabling may also contain PCBs and asbestos.
The hazard material can be on the outer layers here, it can be in the inner layers. We don't test every little piece, so we determine it all to be hazardous no matter what.
The goal is simple.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to keep all the copper, that's the good stuff here, and dispose of all the material around it.
And Andy's got the right tool for the job. His 300 horsepower dual chopper.
This cable comes all the way from outside and drops into this chopper here, and this is a pre-chopper. This chopper here is going to take this material right here, all these big strands with all this big insulation and everything, and it's going to turn it into a granulated product like this right here.
Next, the scrap passes through another set of choppers that cuts the material into even finer pieces. Then it moves to the separation station. Here, vacuums suck off any insulation, separating potentially hazardous material from the copper. And lastly, the copper passes through a magnetized chute that pulls out other metals like steel or nickel. The final product? Clean copper.
This box right here with the price of copper today is up to about $1.80 a pound, so about 5,000 pounds, so close to $10,000 a box. And it's almost like having stacks of $100 bills in here. We like that. That's what keeps us going.
Weeks later, back on the Savannah, the cut-down crew reached the ship's rudders. Two 6-story high, 118,000 kilogram masses of structural steel. To make matters worse, they're submerged. So the team must cut them away from the deck and lift them free from the water. It's a job so massive that Ron must call for reinforcements. Thankfully, in this business, for every big job, there's a rig that's even bigger. The mammoth 107-meter-tall Atlantic Giant. It's the largest floating crane in the Gulf of Mexico, capable of moving 360 tons in a single lift. And it just happens to be right down the canal. The Giant moves into position, and the ESCO crew makes the last prep cuts. They're ready for liftoff. Shipboard manager Ron Mills is primed to remove two of the USS Savannah's most massive parts. Her pair of 18-meter steel rudders. The team chains up the first rudder and makes the final cuts inside the hull. The Atlantic Giant floating crane is ready to do its heavy lifting. The 118-ton mass of steel pops free. But that was the easy part. Now they have to lay it down. The rudder's designed to swivel, so its center of gravity could easily shift as it touches the ground. And after decades of disuse, there's no telling how much or which way it'll swing. Rudder number 1 goes down nice and easy. But number 2 isn't as cooperative. The cut-down crew wastes no time in slicing them up. In days, the rudders will be nothing but 1 by 1.5 meter chunks of steel. Ron is elated.
It always feels good to get one of these major projects out of the way, so.
Now he can pull the Savannah out of the canal and into Esco's slip for the next big removal, the pair of massive propellers.
All right, when I get in position, I'll call you up and we'll get ready to move.
But to move the Savannah, he'll need some help. Cue the tugboats. Ranger and Courageous.
All right, guys, we got this cove up here on the front corner. We want to take the bow around. All right, guys, this is good. This is a good rate. Courageous, keep pushing in on the stern, and Ranger, bring the bow around. Looking good. We're 50 feet off the west bank. We're about 25 feet off the east bank. We're swinging it in. That's good. It's looking good, guys. It's really nice, guys. All right, guys, we're center of the channel now. Let's start lining it up. Let's start pushing her straight north. Give her half a head and push it as far and hard as you can. Let's run her up on the bank.
The propellers hit ground, and the tug's job is done. Now, it's time for the cut-down crew to take over. The ship's stern overhangs the propellers, so the team must cut away the hull for access. Chunk by chunk, they slice away at the stern. Finally, they're ready to cut free the propellers. But the propellers aren't steel, they're brass. Break out the bazooka and burning bars.
Hey, Doggo, can I get you to get out the bazooka to cut that for me, please? It don't look like the regular torch is going to do it.
Shipboard manager Ron Mills gonna need some special blow torches to cut the Savannah's propellers off. First up, the bazooka. It has an extra wide nozzle and 10 times the power of regular blow torches. But that's not the only trick Ron has up his sleeve. He's also got what's called a burning bar. Like an oversized sparkler, this hot rod burns at nearly 4,300 degrees Celsius.
Hey, Doggo, how many burning bars do you think we're going to need when we cut through that? About 15, 20 per shaft? shaft is going to be somewhere between 21 and 26 inches typically. So we have 3 different torches that are being needed just to cut through this shaft to get it ready to come off.
The crew uses the tag team of tools to turn the prop into molten metal. Crane operator Little Joe waits for the burners to finish so he can lift the propeller out.
It's a hot day, like you're on a spring break. Man. But you enjoy working here.
He likes his job, but he loves his crane.
It's a Tonka toy. It's good. This is, I mean, it's awesome. It's a nice crane. American at 9310, beautiful crane.
There's just one thing missing. AC.
That's why I'm sweating.
Finally, it's go time. The teams cut the prop shaft, and they're ready for liftoff. They expect the propellers to weigh upwards of 23,000 kilos. Little Joe gives it a tug, but something's holding it. It's nothing another burning bar can't fix. The thick mud is the last thing in their way. Little Joe gives Ron the final weight.
How much?
54,400.
54,400?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Good job, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Well, these are definitely major hurdles. As soon as these hurdles are done, then we can start cutting away the ship.
The burner crew moves on to the second prop, while they jackhammer the first apart on land. Brass trades at an average of several dollars a kilo, so this 25,000 kilogram propeller looks more like gold. The team cuts the second propeller free and winches the Savannah farther on land, continuing to cut her up. The Savannah's final salute is near.